I'm Sean Fennessey, and this is The Big Picture, a conversation show about Jewish cousins and Christmas junk. Joanna Robinson is here to talk to me about A Real Pain and also about Red One, which is a new film, the number one film of the year. Hi, Joanna. How are you?
Oh, I'm thrilled beyond belief to talk to you about my favorite film of the year, Red One. Cannot wait.
Shall I set the stage on Red One?
Please do.
This is the new movie from Jake Kasdan, son of Larry Kasdan. Started out his career writing funny, clever, small comedies like The TV Set and Zero Effect, and is now the director of big tentpole franchise films like Red One and the Jumanji films. This movie was written by Chris Morgan, who's probably best known for his contributions to the Fast and the Furious franchise movies. Not my favorite franchise, as listeners of the show are aware. This movie stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Chris Evans, and J.K. Simmons as Santa Claus. So, what we have here is a big, noisy, aspiring tentpole movie from Amazon. I want to tell you about how I saw the movie, but Joanna, first, what did you think of Red One? Did you like this movie?
I saw it at 10 a.m. at a theater that served me a Bloody Mary at the same time, which was, I think, setting me up for the most successful version of watching this movie that I could enjoy. My main question throughout, and I'm curious if you have an answer for this, is who is this movie for? Because I think going into something like this, like Red One, we have to, we know that it's not for us. So then you have to like judge the movie on, okay, who are we aiming for? And is it a successful movie for those people? And I just find myself confused as to who this movie is aimed at. What was your experience, Sean?
Well, I'm so glad you drank alcohol during your viewing. I did the same. There's a movie about Santa Claus being kidnapped and a Santa Claus who works in a highly industrialized version of the North Pole, which we can talk about for a bit. I had to go see this movie for work. I wouldn't say this was like high on my list of films. There's been a lot of discussion recently on the dwindling cinematic prospects of Dwayne Johnson, a person whose wrestling career is quite meaningful to me and I'm a huge fan of, and whose film career has gotten worse as the days have gone on. A funny thing happened. One, I got a text message from our friends Griffin and David from the Blank Check podcast and Alex Ross Perry. I'm on a text chain with them, and they said, "Sean, did you see Red One?" Griffin had seen it, and he said, "I suspect a patented Fennessey meltdown is incoming." I hadn't seen it yet. I had made plans to see it by myself after putting my daughter to bed. And for whatever reason, my wife was like, "I'd like to go to the movies with you tonight." So we went together. We got a sitter last minute, and we went together to go see Red One. We went to an Alamo Drafthouse.
Date night for Red One.
We had a date night for Red One. My wife and I haven't been to the movies together. I guess we saw Vertigo over the summer for my birthday. But before that, it had probably been over a year. Yeah. This was our number one activity together before we had a family.
Right.
So Eileen wanted to go to Alamo Drafthouse because she has a big relationship to that place. And she said she's never seen a bad movie in an Alamo Drafthouse.
Okay.
Which I think means that she's gotten drunk during every visit she's had to Alamo Drafthouse.
Okay.
Because she rattled off some of the names and, she saw... 2019 was a big Alamo Drafthouse year for her because her office was next door to the downtown Los Angeles branch. And 2019 was a great movie year, so you could see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you could see Uncut Gems, you could see Ford versus Ferrari, you could see Marriage Story, you could see a number of different films. Mm-hmm. She saw a lot of them, but she also saw films like Harriet. She was like, "I thought Harriet was wonderful." She saw Judy. She was like, "I thought Judy was wonderful." And it's because she always had at least 2 Sauvignon Blancs when she was sitting down and watching a movie. But she was like, "If I go with you to see Red One, because I've never seen a bad movie at an Alamo, Red One will be good."
It will be good, by extension.
Yes. And so we went. And
did you drive to the theater, or did you take a rideshare knowing you were going to get trashed at the Alamo?
We did drive because I'm not going to get trashed. I will have one drink when I do something like that, but I will not. I won't have more than one drink in an Alamo. Okay. But I drove, and we went. And I was pretty mortified, like within 15 minutes of what we were watching. But I turned to her about 45 minutes in, and she was like, "This is pretty good." And she was on drink too.
Yeah.
And, she was wrong in this case. Like, God love her. She's the most important person in the world to me, but I don't know what she was smoking because this movie's terrible. It's really dreadful.
I saw it with a dear friend who I knew it was the person to take because she loves the Fast and Furious franchise. She loves any action movies. She loves the entire rock oeuvre. I was like, this is the person who I have the best chance of enjoying this with. And sure enough, she was like quasi delighted and laughing throughout. Though at the end, when I said, who do you think this is for? She could not answer it for me. So, because the question is this a movie for kids? No, because it's a PG-13 movie and there's just like swearing, a lot of swearing in it. And I'm not a prude about that sort of thing, but some people are. So I wouldn't call it like a movie for kids.
Agreed.
But how is this in a movie for adults is my question on the other side of that. Do you know?
I guess it's for 14-year-old boys who believe in Santa Claus.
And people who like Marvel movies, perhaps. But we like some Marvel movies. But
we
like,
do. It is mythology coded, though, for sure. It is like, this is IP, even though this is an original story. It is intending to be IP. So I guess it's trying to graft off of that audience and the Fast and the Furious audience and the Jurassic World audience, you know?
Did I interrupt the meltdown incoming? Because I don't want to deprive Griff of, one of the dwindling joys in our lives, which is a Fennessey meltdown.
I don't have a meltdown in me because I'm not sure if this movie is really worth getting my dander up for. Like, it's just bad and it's misplayed. You know, like the movie itself it's meant to be in a particular tone, and that tone is to be circa 2017 Marvel style, wisecracking guys getting shit done on a mission. Mm-hmm. And they come from a big apparatus. They live in a big tower, like in the Avengers Tower, and somebody's come along and they're going to mess up their plan and they got to fix it. And in this case, you've got two different kinds of guys who are thrown together and their opposite energies brings them together to form this is a Captain America and Iron Man. They do things differently, but they got to come together to figure it out. Except Chris Evans got the memo. I don't know if we could disagree whether he's good or not in the movie, but he's in a movie that's like, what we are here to do is wisecrack and fight mythological creatures. And The Rock thinks he's in Gallipoli. He thinks he's in a serious drama about the warfare that has been incurred upon the North Pole. And he's playing this part so sternly, it's genuinely weird.
Well, because I actually think the fault there is Chris Evans, because this is the mode he did in Jumanji, but he was bouncing off of Jack Black and Kevin Hart, which are bringing such antic energy, and that's not what Chris Evans is doing here. Chris Evans is misthreading the needle between dirtbag and likability in a way that I don't think he does either quite successfully. You know, he can do dirtbag and Knives Out, and he can do likability in Captain America, and he's trying to do both here and just completely misses. I actually think there's two people I think who know what movie they're in, and it's Christopher Hayview from Game of Thrones, who plays Krampus under a lot of prosthetics. I actually think he's genuinely delightful, and Bonnie Hunt, who's barely in the movie, but I think does know what movie she's in. Misuse of Bonnie Hunt. Bring back Bonnie Hunt. I would like to see more of her, but she does know what movie she's in. Lucy Liu might as well not have been there. I don't understand why you hire Lucy Liu to do absolutely nothing in a film. So that's just where I am. I agree. I mean, I agree. It's not even so bad. It's good in a fun way. It's just confusing and kind of ugly in its special effects. And when we're fighting three giant snowmen on a beach somewhere, again, I'm just wondering who this movie is, while swearing, who is this movie for? So it makes me sound like I'm a prude about swearing. I'm not. I'm just if this is the Santa Claus, a movie that I think you and I are just a little too old for, but if this is the Santa Claus in when it came out, you and I were just a little too old, but that a generation loves the Santa Claus.
Yes,
they just
a crowd pleaser for kids who are 5 years younger than us.
They get it, and they love it. And I'm if this were aimed at that audience, I would understand it, but it's not. It's aimed at teens, and it got decent laughs in my theater. So maybe it's just we're way far out of the loop of what it is a mainstream audience wants from a Christmas movie. But I just didn't understand it at all. So.
There were only two other people in my screening on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening at the Alamo Drafthouse. I I don't know. I feel like I need to point out a couple of other things about the movie.
Please.
One, the way that Christmas in the North Pole is framed is very strange and feels very post-Marvel, post-Fast and the Furious, which is that in this world, Christmas is a corporatized machine that emphasizes efficiency, a kind of military structure, security. We see Santa Claus weight training for extended period of time in the film. He's a bodybuilder, Santa Claus. And then rehearsal is critical. So this is like the Secret Service, the CIA, or maybe like a big corporation like Amazon, which is the company that has produced this movie. This is also a movie about the delivery of packages to homes in the most efficient manner possible.
How many drones does it take to support Santa in his quest to deliver
there are
packages?
elves in this circumstance,
right.
But in any other case, it's very easy to be tremendously skeptical of the at least like the point of view of what Christmas is, which is not this. It is not the rock crunching bones on screen, the bones of ancient mythological demigods. It's either religion, or if you are godless like me, it's a time to be together with people that you care about. This movie is none of those things.
It's not about Coca-Cola. I thought that's what Christmas is supposed to be about. No, but I take your meaning entirely, and I feel like the weightlifting stuff is just so that J.K. Simmons can be like, look, I got shredded that one time and I've kept it. So that's what that's there for.
Looks good.
But I did find the delivery sequence genuinely like chilly, like just really tough. That this is it's not magic. It's not about magic. It's not about belief. Ostensibly, the message of this film is that anyone on the naughty list can get off the naughty list and be nice.
What do you think about that?
That's
the animating idea of the movie.
Right.
Is that people are not all bad. And if they see the light, they can become good, and we shouldn't cash out on them. I thought about this while I watched it. Yeah. Is that right?
Yes. Isn't it? Or does it feel wrong to you in 2024?
Are you feeling like redemption and decency are on the menu in the United States of America right now?
On this particular week, no, I'm not. It's not the perfect time for me to be receptive to that message. And the idea is that inside every sort of cynical or, I don't know, crime fluent adult like Chris Evans, there is a small child who was wounded by something. And if we can just see that small child in them, then we can all come together in common cause, which is capitalism. But I don't know. And I don't understand. You have this in the notes. You didn't say it, but like Chris Evans, his like speciality, in among like various other like petty crimes, is finding people. And this is something that a talent he has had since he was a child. He declares, I can find anything or anyone as a child. That's just a bit of mythology of this character that I don't understand. My question to you, my biggest question to you is, if this makes a ton of money, which it's making some money, but not a ton of money, are we getting Red 2? Like, is that happening?
Well, who would be kidnapped in that storyline? Would it be Mrs. Claus? Would it be Bonnie Hunt?
If it means more Bonnie Hunt, not less Bonnie Hunt, I would be in favor.
I would welcome more. I mean, the movie made $34 million in the United States. It didn't do that well overseas the weekend prior.
Right.
I think there was a bit of a bungling here by not opening this on November 8th, when actually the world could have sought some respite from the world's news. You know, people, I think there was some concern that like the election was going to take place over the course of 3 days in terms of vote counting. And that obviously was not the case. So there was this big fat window where like Heretic was the only new movie that came out. And now this movie is about to lose all the premium screens and a lot of screens because of Wicked and Gladiator 2 and soon Moana 2. And so like, I think this movie basically was made to be on in the background of teenagers' bedrooms on Christmas Day. And it will be on Prime before December 25th. And that's sort of where it's destined to live forever, in this endless loop.
I understand why Bill and Van and like had the conversation about The Rock's career, and I understand why that's the conversation. I feel like the bigger takeaway from this is like, what is Chris Evans doing with the constant post-Marvel squandering of goodwill?
Can I give you my very brief Rock thoughts?
Yeah, please.
He already knows that he's screwed this up. And obviously he's been making The Smashing Machine, this new movie with Benny Safdie this year. And, you know, it's Benny's first movie as a solo director. And Josh is also doing a movie as a solo director with Chalamet. And The Rock is starting to rebuild his reputation as an artist, I guess, for lack of a better word, because he knows that he has strayed way too far off into the lands of Hollywood IP mediocrity. You know, Jungle Cruise and the Fast movies and Hobbs and Shaw and Jumanji and everything that he's been doing for the last 10 years.
What's the height of The Rock's artistic career? Is it Pain and Gain? Like, is that as high as we go?
I mean, I'm a fan of that movie. That movie is divisive. I think The Rundown is probably the closest he came to perfecting what he should be up to, which is using his physicality, but also using his personality to make like a genuinely entertaining kind of like boots on the ground action movie.
That movie rules.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
So I wish he did more of those. He's done some other good movies over the years. And like I said, I'm genuinely a fan of his. Like, I think he's really smart and funny. I've told this story before about how there was like a mishap at the Hobbs and Shaw premiere where the power went out in some of the seats and some of the lighting circumstances. So some people had to be evacuated. So he had to get on stage and like soft shoot for 20 minutes and entertain people before the movie started. And he was fucking amazing. He was so funny and charming for that period of time. So I'm a believer, but I really feel like he has squandered 10 years at the movies, Moana notwithstanding. And it's disappointing. Chris Evans, you know more about this than I do, but he is another guy who not only is he talented, but exhibited great taste. I mean, he's in Snowpiercer, he's in Knives Out, he's been in some really good movies, Sunshine, like really good films made by auteurs, while also doing the Marvel thing and doing it well. His Steve Rogers is great. What happened?
I think his mistake is, because I think Knives Out and Snowpiercer are like excellent examples of what he can do outside of Marvel. And I think his mistake is making Marvel-esque movies outside of the Marvel machine and that just not working for him or making the impact. And so then it doesn't feel like those movies exist at all. And so then his CV starts to feel empty, like completely devoid of post-Marvel choices because what he's making is so forgettable. So I think he's trying to swing in familiar territory. And I think he should continue to sort of, try something farther afield because I think he's quite capable in those other options. You know what I mean?
What did you think of him in Deadpool and Wolverine? Did you like that?
Yeah, but I mean, it was brief and it was fun. Did you not like it?
No, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I mean, it's an example of like what you just described, but actually in a Marvel movie, as opposed to, Ghosted, where he's kind of affecting a Marvel persona in just a regular old crime movie.
Right. And Ghosted feels like it doesn't exist.
It does.
So,
100%. Same for Pain Hustlers, which I didn't hate, but is just like, is there any consciousness about that movie whatsoever, even though it stars him and Emily Blunt?
Right. Exactly.
It's a shame. I mean, the other question to ask here is, do people even want Christmas movies from big studios anymore? Because when we were growing up, obviously, you've got your Miracle on 34th Street and It's a Wonderful Life, and there's this long history of Hollywood's relationship to, White Christmas and Holiday Inn and all these films that when you're growing up, they're on AMC.
Yeah.
And then in the 90s, there's the boom. There's a sort of post-Home Alone boom of films. And you've got a Miracle on 34th Street remake. And you've got Arnold Schwarzenegger getting in the mix with the Jingle All the Ways. Christmas movies were like stock and trade for Hollywood for a long time. Love Actually, yes.
Elf,
I'm glad you brought up Love Actually and Elf, because Love Actually and Elf, both movies that came out in 2003, feel like the last two movies that are really in like a kind of Hollywood Christmas canon.
I would say The Holiday sort of eked in under.
I hate that movie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but people love that movie and watch it every year. So
yeah, I'm not a Nancy Meyers hater, but I really think that movie is a failure. That's just me.
I think that movie is a 50% a success. It's the same way I feel about Julie and Julia. There's like half a good movie in there.
Okay, what half of?
It's Kate Winslet and Jack Black. It's just charm.
I like that they go to the video store. That's all I can really remember.
It's about the art of cinema. It's about honoring the meet cute and film composers.
Who is it? Eli Wallach?
Yes.
That part is. Yeah, you're right. That part is good. I like that part too.
Great.
Couple of other Christmas movies in the last 10 years that like didn't totally get there. The Night Before, the Seth Rogen movie, which is
such
okay.
high hopes for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Best Man Holiday, which I like, but didn't really. It's a sequel to a movie. Happiest Season. Did you like that? The Kristen Stewart movie?
No, and I really, really wanted to. I liked
it, but it's not. It didn't really. It was like a streaming movie, and now it doesn't really feel like it exists either. It does have its fans.
What it did is it made Aubrey Plaza a gay icon, which has served her very well since.
It did do that. How was Agatha? I know you finished that.
Wonderful.
Was it?
Yeah, truly great. I actually think you would like it. I genuinely do.
What did you like better, Agatha or The Penguin?
And you've watched neither?
I've started both.
I think you would prefer the Penguin.
Because I'm a bro?
No, because I think what it's swinging for is closer to your taste in the like sort of prestige TV, prestige film realm. And
Okay.
Agatha is swinging towards musicals and sort of like The Craft and Buffy Vampire Slayer and stuff like that, which is I think a little less in your particular lane. But I think they both. I'm sorry to bring House of R over here, though you did ask, but I do think that those are two of the most successful IP swings on television we've had in recent years, and it feels like people were so burnt out on all the misses that came before it that they maybe didn't give them the chance they deserved.
I was a little disappointed by Dune Prophecy, I must tell you.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Early days. I don't know how much of it you've watched.
Just the first episode.
Just the first episode. We'll see.
But
we'll see.
I'm gonna give the Penguin a fair shake. Agatha, we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe if Eileen gets interested. You know, the other thing that happened with Christmas movies is that Netflix and Hallmark make like 14 of them to 18 of them a year. And so there's just a lot of content that is available and disposable. Maybe we don't need a canon anymore.
There used to be, I mean, when we were growing up, there would be like an occasional Santa-based film on like Lifetime Television or Hallmark or something like that, and I used to love those. Like I just like really loved those. And then when it became the holiday rom-com, which is like what Hallmark started and Netflix has eagerly latched onto, you know, or then you have like Kurt Russell playing Santa Claus for Netflix and Goldie Hawn's involved, or you have the film that I'm not making it up called Hot Frosty, currently on Netflix with Lacey Chabert, and where she falls in love with a snowman? Question mark.
Sure, yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it might just be that the specialness of the Christmas movie has lost all meaning. But to your point, it's so interesting that like when we were growing up, you mentioned all these movies. It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street, et cetera, White Christmas, Holiday Inn. We were watching like decades old movies, and they were just rerun on network once a year, and we loved them, and it felt special. And the market's just flooded in a way that it doesn't feel any kind of special anymore.
It's true. I mean, there were some more recent vintage. Obviously, A Christmas Story is a legendary example, but I feel like Elf is the last movie that really hit that you would watch when you were 5. And you will have with you forever. That it feels like that particular, like Love Actually obviously is beloved, but it's a rom-com. And if you're 12, that's probably the first time you can watch it and really get into it, right?
There is a whole storyline in Love Actually with a couple who are stand-ins for sex scenes in films that sort of precluded as a child-friendly film. Yeah.
Right. Did you happen to see any of the takeaways from Richard Curtis being awarded an honorary Oscar at the governor's ball yesterday?
What did he say?
Well, it was more about what Hugh Grant said, where he viciously annihilated him while presenting him with the award for roughly 15 minutes.
Hugh Grant, this era of Hugh Grant's absolute rapscallionness is one of our greatest gifts, I think. So
I didn't ask you to see this. Maybe I should have, but you didn't see Heretic, right?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Okay.
Did you like
I haven't
it?
had a chance to talk to anybody about it on the show other than the makers of the film. I thought it was pretty good. First 2/3 very good. And Hugh Grant is out of this world entertaining in it. I mean, the movie is resting right on his shoulders for an hour and a half, and he carries the whole thing. It's very, very
I'm really excited to see it. Absolutely. And I think that like every single interview he's given around it has been a pure joy. Genuinely pure joy, because he's just leaning into his long-standing asshole reputation, and now he's just old enough that it's like he's like, yes, and isn't it charming of me? What an asshole I am, and everyone agrees.
It is delightful. Do you think if I get like 10 years older that I'll be able to pull off the same thing? We're finally everybody will be like, oh, I see. He was leaning towards being septuagenarian asshole, and that's more charming.
First, you have to make the podcast version of Paddington 2. Do you think you have that in you?
Well, I can certainly try.
Yeah, I believe in you.
Thank you.
I'll support you in that.
Shall we talk about A Real Pain?
Yeah, let's talk about a great movie.
This is a great movie. We talked about it a little bit on Friday on the show because you were a little unsure where it stood in the Best Picture hierarchy, but we didn't really talk about it in any sort of subjective way.
Right.
Now, I saw this movie at Sundance in January. Speaking of seeing movies with my wife, this was the one movie that she joined me for at virtual Sundance. And I said, it's Jesse and it's Kieran Culkin, and something tells me this is going to work. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of Jesse's first feature. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see that movie.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I did watch it and loved it then, raved about it then on the show. Been very excited to talk about it. There's been this long wait for it to come to theaters. It finally came to theaters earlier this month and expanded over the weekend. Very quickly, the story follows this pair of cousins, David and Benji, who reunite for a tour of Poland to honor their late grandmother, who's just passed and was a critical figure in both of their lives. She was a survivor of the Holocaust. And so they go on this tour with a group of other strangers. They visit Lublin, the concentration camp, and they see the sights and sort of some of the critical spaces in their grandmother's life to better understand her, better understand themselves. And it is a reunion of sorts between these cousins who aren't as close as they used to be. So Jesse plays David and Kieran Culkin is played by Benji. So you liked this movie?
I did like this movie. I think I was just curious. My enjoyment of this movie, actually, I had a bad time watching the movie because it is intentionally quite agitating, and I've had a really good time thinking about this movie. Is sort of my relationship with it.
Can you describe what you mean by that? Because I feel similarly. Made a similar note about this.
I think so. The thing about Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg is that I think they're two of our most talented performers, and I don't think either of them are chameleonic in any way. They play two very specific archetypes. I think Jesse is better than Kieran is at playing all the different shades of that archetype. So you can take some of Jesse's more like absolute sweetheart roles and Mark Zuckerberg, and you can see how that's all sort of one archetype along different points of the moral spectrum. Kieran is essentially giving us his Succession performance here, and it's like, and as a long-standing Igby, Dangerous Life of Older Boys, like long-standing Kieran fan, I say that with like all the love in my heart. But I think there's something about the neurotic archetype that Jesse Eisenberg plays, which you and I both respond to, and then the like, ain't I a stinker sort of Kieran Culkin thing that he does, with that like air of melancholy that he brings to a lot of those performances. That is intentionally, I think, agitating, right? It's like a real pain. The title pertains to 9 different levels of what we're talking about, but one of it is just sort of like the experience of being around these personalities as they clash. And so I was just like my shoulders kept like going up to my ears as I was watching it, my frustration with Kieran's character. And I think that but it feels so intentional. I think Jesse, one of the best scenes, you have it sort of grouped as one of the specific scenes to talk about, but I just want to like dip into it on the filmmaking side and just say there's a dinner scene where Jesse Eisenberg's character finally sort of tells the group they're traveling with like his true feelings about his cousin, who he's sort of just been like making some excuses for, sort of shielding throughout. And there's a choice they made in the construction of the scene that Kieran's character is away at the bathroom and you're just worried the whole time that he's going to come back and hear all these things that are being said about him, to the truth telling at last from Jesse Eisenberg's character. And there's like a slow push in on him as he's talking. And it is like one of the most tense experiences I think I've ever had watching a movie. So that's what I mean, is I just felt agitated. But then as I think about the empathy we're asked to have for everyone involved, and also the like truly emotional nature of this kind of heritage journey that people go on, it's really growing on me as something that I think I'll be thinking about for a really long time. Does that make sense?
It does. I think it's a really resonant movie if you have an extended family that you like. I grew up with a lot of my cousins and with a big family surrounding me. And so I have relationships like this, maybe not at this register necessarily, but I think you're right that the movie is trying to portray in as unsafe and uncalming a way as possible how sometimes these relationships can be really challenging. And especially if you've got someone like Benji who's unafraid to explore the outer edges of someone's comfort. And that's something that his character does, where Kieran Culkin, as you say, brings this energy to everything he does, the Lonergan plays he's done over the years, those movies that you mentioned, where he's sort of the person who pokes at the open wound. You know, that's something he's very comfortable at. He's very comfortable exploring discomfort. And the David character, Eisenberg's character, is trying to do something that he feels is very sensitive and very personal and very emotional, and taking this journey, and also in theory, reconnecting or rebuilding with Benji. And it becomes clear very quickly that Benji is sort of incapable of a proper rebuild, you know, that he's not suited to the thing that David wants. And he also can't understand David's life, which is, it's over communicated how normy David is, you know, that he's a father and that he is a husband and that he owns a home and lives in the suburbs and he has a, you know, a job that is a career, but it's really a means to pay. You know, he sells banners on websites, which is the most ridiculous job. And Jesse explained why that's the job and how this idea came to him when we talked. But this friction between these two people who are immeasurably close, who've experienced something, who share blood, is a fascinating thing to me. I just thought it really, really worked. And it's unusual to see the cousins dynamic. You know, we see a lot of brothers, we see a lot of best friends, we see a lot of husbands and wives.
Sure.
And I was thinking about the mode that this movie is in, which is a familiar but kind of ancient Hollywood mode. It's like it's Billy Wilder, it's Hal Ashby, it's Woody Allen. The tonality, the really sad dramedy is hard to pull off and exceedingly rare in Hollywood right now. And so I thought it was just a very deft portrait of these two complicated guys. And the other thing is that David is like, it's very clear to know David because he gets that big centerpiece that you were talking about at that dinner sequence where he just kind of lays it all out. Like nothing is withheld in that moment. We never really totally get to the bottom of whatever it is with Benji. Like he has moments where he shares his pain or his confusion around certain things, but there's something else that is unexplored. I think mostly because we're seeing the movie through David's eyes and not through Benji's eyes. So that's like a very distinct choice that is made that I think is really good, that leaves us kind of unresolved and thinking more about the movie because we're sort of like, what was it about these two guys? What is their relationship ultimately?
Yeah, I mean, there are some hints about sort of the reason they were so close because, you know, one came from a more functional strain of this family than the other. So there's some hints about that. I would also say I saw it with a friend of mine who had zero patience for Kieran's character, and that's not really how I felt. But when she was just sort of like, what was going on? I don't understand. I was like, well, he's unmedicated, like he's unmedicated, you know? And it's just like, and he's someone who's not interested in being medicated. And that's, you know, whereas Jesse Eisenberg's character manages his anxiety or his this, that, and the other thing via medication. And I'm not here to be an ad one way or another for medication, but I will say that like what I do enjoy about this movie and what I enjoy about any of these sort of two-handers of like the free spirit versus the uptight, like, you know, there's a million different versions of that, is however irritating Kieran's character is to me personally, the liberation that he allows his cousin occasionally on this trip when they're breaking into hotel roofs or doing this, that, and the other thing. There's something just really beautiful and affecting about that. But it doesn't end with coming together in common cause. It ends in like this continued separation, which again sort of picks at you, right? Because we're not resolved in any kind of way on this, and the future is uncertain for Kieran's character. And is the answer, is he going to be okay? I don't think so, you know, and that's what's pretty rare about something like this, because when you see people go on this like journey elsewhere, wherever you go, there you are, but this like journey elsewhere towards understanding yourself, and the fact that Kieran's character ends literally where he begins inside of this film, it's a very satisfactory, unsatisfactory delivery of this idea of just because you have these experiences doesn't mean you can necessarily alter your direction in life if it's said in one way or another. You know?
I really like how you put that. I think the movie shows you him consistently dancing through the raindrops of his own abandon in his thinking. So like the train hopping sequence, for example, is a moment where like that could go terribly wrong. To just get off your train at the wrong time in the wrong city not speaking the language could be disastrous. But like for me, somebody like me, very type A, very control heavy,
Yeah.
watching a character do that it makes me panic. And it makes me think if I was in that situation. And the movie is very good at putting you in the shoes of these guys when they're making these choices and feeling what they're doing. I felt a sense of panic when he does that, when they hop off. And then it works out, like as it so often does for charismatic people.
Panic and irritation and aggravation that he just like let his cousin sleep through the stop. It's just like, so he's removing choice and the inherent hypocrisy and contradiction of this character throughout, where he's lecturing their guide, played by Will Sharp. I thought Will Sharp was great in this movie, but like lecturing him when they're in the cemetery, but also staging a photo op at this like war memorial in a way that makes David incredibly uncomfortable. And he's just sort of like, and the careful dance they do throughout, because they're touring with this group, and the group is initially enamored and then frustrated and sort of goes back and forth with Benji, but Benji makes an impression in a way that David never does at all with them. And the dance throughout of David sort of trying to commiserate, I know, isn't he the worst? And then they were like, no, he's great. And he's like, oh, I thought we all agreed on what was sort of decorum, what was demanded of this, that, or the other thing. And I thought that was really enjoyable as well. But I mean, the reason that I was questioning this film's place in the Best Picture race had nothing to do with my like individual enjoyment of it, but more, I can't think of a comp of like a walkie-talkie Sundance film that feels like it enters the Best Picture race as strongly or as high as I thought you had it. That was sort of more my pushback, was less like, I don't think this is a good film, and more, does this kind of film land with Academy voters,
Well, I think that conversation is a reflection of this very unusual slate, right? Where we gnashed our teeth for 90 minutes with Katie trying to figure out what the landscape was, because it's an odd year. There often is something from Sundance that tends to emerge that I think taps at something deeply emotional. Like The Coda Win is very much about that. It's a smaller movie. It's a movie about family. It's a movie that is much more sentimental than A Real Pain is. A Real Pain is kind of the opposite of that. It's like a very raw, direct channeling of pain and anxiety. But Little Miss Sunshine is a movie that this reminded me of a little bit. That's a much bigger cast and ensemble, and there's more sort of like Hollywood history inside that movie, but it's not so far afield. And that was a front runner almost.
Yeah, but I feel like this is the argument you and I went back and forth on the Coda year, but like you're meant to feel good and uplifted when you come out of those movies, and this is meant to discomfort you, and again, I feel like it's intentionally done, and I think Jesse Eisenberg did a great job with that, but I just can't imagine someone saying, let's sit down and watch A Real Pain together is going to feel great to do so. Whereas with Little Miss Sunshine, and I guess the point that Katie was making as well, which is the PR tour that those casts can make. I mean, the Little Miss Sunshine I saw the morning after its premiere at Sundance. The whole cast was there. Steve Carell was like giving people in the audience hugs. It was like this, that cast can be, ambassadors for their film. By all reports, I don't know my understanding is that Kieran and Jesse did not have the smoothest time making this movie together. So I don't know in terms of like a joint Academy run. Not that that's the only thing to talk about when it comes to this film, obviously. No. I just wanted to like delineate my personal enjoyment versus like where it stands in the Best Picture race.
I think it's all relevant to this conversation. Obviously, one, Jesse shared this fascinating thing in the reporting that I asked him about on the show, which is that he had never seen Kieran perform before he cast him in the movie, which I just still find bewildering, even after hearing him talk about this. So he'd never watched Succession. He'd never seen any films he was in. He'd only auditioned with him once, and he cast him off of that. Maybe he identified something about his energy. Nevertheless, that's strange. Two, Kieran Culkin tried to pull out of the movie, and he had to be convinced by his ex-girlfriend, Emma Stone, who is a producer on the movie, to do the movie. Obviously, Emma and Jesse are longtime friends, and they've appeared in the Zombieland movies. And so that's fascinating that Kieran wouldn't want to do this. It's been quite a year for pulling out of movies with Joaquin Phoenix's hijinks in the Todd Haynes film. I'm glad he did it. He's obviously perfect for Benji, and Jesse's instincts were right. I don't think whether or not they like had a good time making the movie really matters. Like, frankly, most people don't have a good time making movies together. I don't know if they're going to want to hang out during the press tour.
That's all I mean. It only matters in the case of like, let's go out as ambassadors for the movie together, you know?
I know, but like Kieran now coming off of this incredible run with Succession, people are very comfortable with him at award shows, and he's really a front runner for supporting actor.
He is in a way that like, for some reason I'm not thrilled about it. And I think the only reason I'm not thrilled about it is it really does not feel very distinct from Roman Roy. And so I'm just sort of like,
it's Kieran doing Kieran things as opposed to transformation.
Gave him an Emmy for that. So I was just like, it feels a little, but I don't have a strong counter case other than let's give Denzel a third Oscar because he deserves it. So,
well, let's talk about it, because like we're in this tricky spot where not everyone has seen a lot of the movies that are competing for the awards. You've seen some of the people who are competing for supporting actor, but not all of them. But just to get a sense of the landscape, it is a pretty cool race this year because it's a good mix of old hands and new voices. You could make the case that even though the movie kind of hangs on Culkin's charisma, that it's not the most interesting performance out of the top 10 people who are competing for this award for the exact reason that you said. I do think Denzel in Gladiator 2 is very much in the conversation. I think he's the best part of that movie. We'll talk about that movie with Mal and Chris on Friday. Yeah. I think it unlike Culkin, and unlike my expectations, he's not just doing Denzel things. This is kind of a new version of Denzel that I can't recall having seen before, honestly. And so that made it really fun.
Okay. I'm seeing it tomorrow, so I'm excited to have a more informed take.
I wish you will. And likewise with The Brutalist, Guy Pearce, that's going to end up being one of my favorite performances of the year. And I think similarly, the movie turns on what he is able to show us and not show us through the course of that movie. And he's, it's a character that we follow through time as well, just like Adrian Brody's character, and has this like enormous amount of psychological underpinning that drives some of the narrative. And also Guy Pearce is another person who, like, it's weird that he has not been honored before, because even in lousy movies, he's often great.
That's my favorite. For me, if I were an Academy voter, which I'm not, but as like a voter in an awards body, the thing that I always am considering is, isn't it weird this person doesn't have this award? Or doesn't their body of work tell us that they deserve this award? It's why I'm usually not high on like the brand newest thing should get the award, when like there's someone like Guy Pearce who has turned in, not that Kieran, obviously Kieran's not the brand newest thing, I'm thinking about other people, but like that he, for Kieran to just do Kieran and do it very well, versus Guy Pearce, who is a chameleon and has done a million different modes for decades in Hollywood. I would much rather see a statue in his hand, personally.
I think out of those three, I think that would be the most satisfying thing for me, because I remember very vividly just going to see LA Confidential in the movie theater, absolutely loving that movie, having no idea who Guy Pearce was, and thinking to myself, like, I guess that's like Jimmy Stewart, like, I guess that's just going to be someone who's at the center of movies for the next 25 years. And in a way he has been, but in a much more supporting fashion, because he's just clearly a little weirder as a performer.
Yeah. The first thing I saw him in was in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which he's doing something
so great in that too.
Different. He's so good in that. So then to see LA Confidential, and then to see, Memento and like all the other stuff, and you're just sort of like, wow, this guy has so many things, so many cards he can play. So yeah, isn't it weird that Guy Pearce doesn't have an Oscar? Yes, give him an Oscar. Why not?
I liked what you were saying before too about like the new flavor, the new thing. I was at the Alamo yesterday watching Red One, and one of the previews was for Love Hurts. Are you familiar with this new movie coming, Love Hurts? Mm-hmm. So this is a new movie starring Kiwi Kwan and Ariana DeBose, and produced by 87 North, which is David Leitch's production company, the people that brought you The Fall Guy. And it's an action thriller comedy about, I guess, like some sort of secret operative who's been living a normal life and gets pulled back into the game. But Kiwi Kwan, last seen in Everything Everywhere All at Once, is in it and kind of taking advantage of his martial arts training.
Loki season 2 erasure, but yes. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Apologies.
And you were like, oh, these are 2 Oscar winners.
Yes. I was like, this movie is being sold on the fact that Kiwi Kwan and Ariana DeBose are Academy Award winners. And that's so strange.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, then there's nothing against them. They're both great in their own way. I've kind of especially after Wish and my daughter's love for Wish. I've turned on Ariana DeBose. I'm like, actually, maybe she is good. Maybe
She is good.
her theater girl energy is fine. And I'm okay with it. But there are so many actors in Hollywood who don't have Oscars, and those two do, and they're selling the movie on the back of that. But then when I look at like the next band of potential contenders in supporting actor, it's like Yura Borisov and Anora and Clarence Macklin and Sing Sing, two people that you've probably never seen before in a movie that give good performances.
I would love for them to be nominated. I don't want them to win, but I loved both of those performances so much.
I did too.
That I would be thrilled to see them nominated.
If they find a way to thread the needle on Sing Sing, I wouldn't be stunned to see him move into the front runners because people love that performance. I loved that performance. I thought he was amazing.
Incredible.
Obviously, he's putting a lot of his real life into that movie too.
That's one of those, like, it has such a strong narrative around it. And we've seen similar wins in that category around that. So like, I just thought Yura Borisov is in Anora is just like, I don't know, that performance really makes that movie for me in many ways. It's just like, and it's an iconic. I know you said in the previous episode we did with Katie that you don't care about category fraud, but let's be clear, Kieran Culkin is like clear category fraud in supporting.
He is a lead for sure.
What Yura Borisov is doing and Clarence Macklin is a little bit of category fraud because he's like the co-lead of that movie, but like what Yura Borisov is doing in Anora, that is an iconic supporting role done perfectly. So
I totally agree with you, and I think Sean Baker like masterfully edits the movie where there are so many cutaways to just Yura Borisov's expression.
I know.
Just him admiring Anora, fascinated by Anora. It sets up the final act of the movie so well. I don't want to spoil the movie, but anyway.
Knowing we were having this conversation, I did a pure Igor rewatch of Anora, and I was just like, I was stunned by all the cutaways to him. I was like, Sean did him such a favor. I mean, his performance is great, but then Sean did him such a favor with that edit.
He totally sets him up so well. Yeah. Okay, so the other people who are contending here, like I'll just do a brief rundown. You've got Stanley Tucci in Conclave, which I think is a good performance, but is maybe missing one big scene that would have helped him along the way.
For the real.
John Magaro and Peter Sarsgaard in September 5. Frankly, John Magaro is the lead and Peter Sarsgaard is supporting, but they're running both in supporting apparently. John Turturro in The Room Next Door. A lot of the betting markets have this. I'm not sure if I really understood this. He basically has one scene in the movie, and it's an okay scene. It's a bit overwritten, to be honest with you. Have you seen this yet?
Yeah. I wouldn't. I am also confused why this is a strong contender.
Did you see The Apprentice?
I did.
What do you think of Jeremy Strong? Speaking of our Succession boys.
I mean, Jeremy Strong, like, if one of the actors from Succession is going to get nominated, shouldn't it be Jeremy Strong, who is never the same in any single role that he plays? And is incredible in this, like, kind of entertaining yet also deeply unpleasant to watch in its own sense film. Like Jeremy Strong, for whatever you might say about any given New Yorker profile, is I think one of the most talented performers that exists, and I would easily put him in any actor race for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get in there. I don't know if that's going to be possible. A couple of other names, Adam Pearson from A Different Man, another movie I haven't really had a chance to talk about too much aside from having Sebastian Stan on the show, but that I liked quite a bit. Ray Fisher was the big surprise of the piano lesson for me. Have you seen that yet?
Yeah.
I think his, I did not realize Cyborg had that in his bag, so to speak.
Ray is due another sort of crack at it all, Like,
I think he will get one after this movie.
Yeah.
And then Josh O'Connor and Jonathan Bailey in Challengers and Wicked. We didn't mention Challengers at all on Friday, and people were mad, Joanna.
People were upset, and I would like to formally apologize. And can we make our apologies? I mean, Josh O'Connor, again, slight category fraud, but like Josh O'Connor is Challengers. I love Mike Weiss and I love Zendaya, but like Josh O'Connor is Challengers. And so like, even if it doesn't get into the Best Picture conversation, which it should, and we apologize for omitting it, but like, Josh O'Connor, I would be thrilled to see him in that. What do you think of the news that he's going to be in Steven Spielberg's upcoming UFO movie?
Absolutely fantastic.
Thrilled for Josh O'Connor. I think that's great.
He's incredible in Challengers. He's the best part of the movie.
Yeah. And I'm not so wicked pilled that I would say that I think Johnny Bailey has a good shot with Fiyero.
I don't think that's happening.
I don't think that's happening.
That doesn't seem plausible. He's fine in the movie.
He's great.
Yeah.
He's exactly what he needs to be. But
I haven't seen A Complete Unknown or The Fire Inside, but you've got two actors here who have competed in this category, one of which has won before. You've got Edward Norton, who is playing Pete Seeger in what looks to be, a transformation, showy kind of performance about a historical figure, which often plays with the Academy.
Yeah.
And Brian Tyree Henry, who was recently nominated for the Jennifer Lawrence film that is called what?
I could not tell you.
It's incredibly tough. It used to be called Red, White, and Blue, and they changed the title, and I literally cannot think of the title. That's how much it doesn't exist. Nevertheless, he was nominated, and he's a great actor, also an Emmy-nominated actor. I can't say where those stand at the moment. The one I would like to see is Bill Skarsgård from Nosferatu.
That's exciting.
Wouldn't it be nice if they honored something like that? Like a real monster performance. We don't. They never do that.
So you're saying not Chris O'Havey in Red One as Krampus? Again, the star of the show.
He wasn't bad.
I think he was great.
He fought that witch, right?
Yeah. I think he owned the movie every single second he was on screen.
What did you think of the slapping game that they played in that film?
I think it was called Schlapp.
Schlapp?
And I think we should. Do you think HR would allow us to do it at the office holiday party this year? Yeah.
I don't think so. You would play that game with me?
With you, yes.
Because I'm evidently very weak.
No, I don't think you're as vicious as some of the other people we work with could possibly be.
Like
or
Mallory.
Competitive. I would not play with Mallory.
I wouldn't play with Mallory either.
No.
I wouldn't play a slapping game as a manager here at Spotify and The Ringer. That's just not something I would participate in.
How high-minded of you.
Who will win Best Supporting Actor in your opinion?
I'm worried it's Kieran, and I'm gonna try. I don't know if you experience this the same way, but I have years where someone's inevitably gonna win a category, and I just tell myself, don't worry about it, just let it happen, and you can care about this category next year. But I already did that last year with Downey because I did not think Downey should win last year. So I don't want to just put supporting actor in a box 2 years in a row. So I would say I really want to see how Gladiator 2 does. I really could see a third statue for Denzel.
So how many of the 7 actors who have won at least 3 Academy Awards can you name?
Just by actors, do you mean men or performers?
Men and women. Yeah, performers.
Wow.
7 have done it.
I'm just going to disappoint everyone. I mean, Katharine Hepburn.
I'm putting you on the spot, but it's a good trivia question.
It's Katharine Hepburn.
Katharine Hepburn is number 1. She has 4. She is the only actor with 4 Academy Awards. That's also a really hard trivia question is can you name the 4 performances? That's really tough.
For Katharine Hepburn?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, On Golden Pond is 1.
That's 1. That's her last one.
No, because I think it's not even the right ones. Didn't she win for Pat or something like that? Not ones you would want her to win for? She
won 3 in the second half of her career. She won On Golden Pond, The Lion in Winter, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Right.
Lion in Winter is very good. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? That performance is fine. And then the first one is Morning Glory in 1933.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah,
that's a tough one.
As the bright new thing. That was her entree, and then she was box office poison, and then she came back.
That was her Brie Larson moment, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so Katharine Hepburn is 1. Who else can you name?
Oh my God, I can't. Sean, this is horrible.
Think of the icons of the 1970s, 80s, and 90s.
I'm blanking. Can you give me a
Who's
hint?
the most celebrated actress of your lifetime?
Oh, Meryl. Got it.
Meryl Streep is 1. Who's the most celebrated actor of your lifetime? There are 2 answers to this question.
Because Hanks has only won 2.
Hanks has only won 2. There's 1 American movie star and 1 Irish English.
Oh, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
An American movie star and actor who's the most celebrated of my lifetime, who has won 3 Oscars.
A singular movie star. There's no one like him.
Sean Penn has not won 3, has he?
He's not?
No.
I believe Sean Penn has 2.
He has 2, yeah. Can you give me one more hint? I really hope Kitty Rich is not listening to this. She's so mad at me right now.
2 leads and 1 supporting. He's won an Academy Award one in the 70s, one in the 80s, and one in the 90s.
Oh, De Niro.
Mm-mm.
No.
Nope. He only has 2.
Who is it, Sean?
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson, of course.
Okay, so we've got Katharine Hepburn, Meryl Streep, Jack Nicholson, Daniel Day-Lewis. There are 3 others. You want me to give them to you?
Yeah, please.
Well, one of them is Walter Brennan, who was crushing, and he won in off years 36, 38, and 40.
Wow.
Then there's Frances McDormand, of course.
Of course, Fran.
Who won in 17 and 20. Would she have won if there were not a pandemic in 2020? Interesting question for us.
That is an interesting question for Oscar scholars for years to come.
Was that a bubble Oscar? Big question. Just like the Lakers and the Dodgers had bubble titles.
There are certain people who won that year that I never want to put an asterisk on their win, so
Okay.
I can't put an asterisk on any win that year.
I'm a huge fan of hers, so it's nothing critical about her. And then the last is Ingrid Bergman.
Oh, great.
Who also has 2 leads and 1 supporting for Gaslight, Anastasia, and Murder on the Orient Express. Also, the last one's a little iffy, in my opinion.
The one that oh yeah, absolutely. But the one that I would, if we were to bump Fran down to 2,
mm-hmm.
Nomadland is not the one I would take from her. It would be 3 Billboards. But that's
I'm like
a 3 Billboards hater for life. So
I know I'm on an island with that one where I just felt like I understood what he was trying to do, and it went into the take cycle and got all confused. My whole thing is like listen to the lyrics of Streets of Laredo, the song that plays at the beginning of that movie, and then think about what that song is about and what the movie is about. I encourage people who think that movie is like some coded weird like white power thing to reconsider.
I don't think that at all. I don't think that at all. And McDonough is like one of my favorite storytellers that exists. I just like do not like that movie.
Okay,
but not because I think of the take cycle. But
let's call Fran. Fran, you're a fraud. You don't deserve 2 of your 3 Oscars. What do you say to Joanna? Okay, that was a fun game.
That sounds like the scariest phone call of all time if we were to call Fran up and tell her she doesn't deserve one of her Oscars.
Did I tell you my Frances McDormand story? Do you know this?
Please.
So in 2010, shortly before I came to work at Grantland, I was writing an oral history of Michael Bay for GQ. And I interviewed 50, 60 people that were across Bay's life and career. And at the time, he was working on Transformers 4, I think. And Frances McDormand is in that film. And so I requested an interview with her. She very rarely does press. She said, I won't sit for an interview, but I'll write you a letter about what I like about Michael Bay. And she wrote me a letter, and it was sent to me at GQ. And we included parts of the letter in the piece and then ran it in full online. And it was very funny. Clearly written in her voice. And, she described him as like, a rapscallion and a real bastard and a lot of fun and, real in Fran voice. It was a great experience. I was very happy to have it.
Fran, like Hugh Grant, has earned being exactly who she wants to be. My favorite recent Fran story is they live up in Marin County a lot of the time, which is where I'm from. And so when she did a Q&A after like a women talking screening, because she was exec producer on that film, she's like, I invited all my friends. She lives in this like very small coastal town in Marin County. She's like, I invited a bunch of my friends. Where are they? And they didn't answer. And she got like visibly upset. And then they were just sort of like, they wooed from the back of the room. And she's like, oh, there they are. And then she was like ready to go. And I found that just like very charming that she's like, where are my local friends, my local weirdos from the weird little coastal town that I live in? And I really like that about her.
Marin County, home of George Lucas, David Fincher, Joel Cohen and Frances McDormand and Joanna Robinson. What a sainted place.
Wow. Peter Coyote also used to live there.
Oh, love him too.
Yeah, big fan.
Incredible. Should we talk? Well, you think Kieran's going to win? That's your takeaway.
Right now, what do you think? It seems like what everyone, when you go on the various, like your gold derbies or your varieties, whoever is like sort of checking in on the horse race, and they'll put like a thumbnail up of whoever the front runner is in that category right now. It's Kieran across the board, seems like.
It is.
And
it's so strange. It's like I always get annoyed by these things when we just settle on them.
I know.
I whinged about this with the with Judy and that win, and I just thought that was so strange that we'd all just decided that Renee Zellweger should win again in a movie that's like not good, and her performance is good, but she'd already won, and I don't, I'm like, why is Scarlett Johansson not competing in this category? I couldn't figure that out.
And that was a narrative that coalesced at Telluride.
It did.
So early
where
in the process.
Where no one liked it. So I don't even understand why that nobody came out of there and was like, that movie's good.
It felt like, we're sorry we were mean to you about some plastic surgery you got. And we would like to apologize and welcome you back into the fold. That's what that 100% felt like to me.
But nobody who actually cares about movies had turned on Renee Zellweger. She's wonderful.
No, exactly. So my mission for us, like 1 year, Sean, is for us to start a rumor at Telluride that just like coalesces into an Oscar win for someone.
That would require you coming to Telluride, Joanna.
I heard everyone is saying that X is happening. You know what I mean? So I think we could do it.
I think
Don't
I
you
can pull it
believe in
off
the
at this
power
point.
of the Whisper campaign from Ringer HQ?
Yeah, but I need you there with me to do it. Like,
Right.
I need help. We can
Sign
go
me
to,
up.
we can separate sides of town
Yeah,
and spread the word, with
Exactly.
all of our powerful networking sources.
right.
You're more connected than I am with this shit. You should definitely do it.
After everyone listens and hears me bombing on Oscar trivia, I don't know what kind of pull I'll have in this community anymore.
No, you didn't bomb at all. That's okay. I like to just put my co-hosts in a difficult position when it comes to trivia. It makes me seem smarter, even though I'm not.
I think you would have gotten Jack at least. Yeah.
Okay, so A Real Pain is a real proper two-hander.
Well, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
What is a proper two-hander?
It's a movie where there are two leads.
Okay.
And those leads, to me,
Despite
at
the
least,
strong supporting cast around them.
yes, there can, unless there is so here's one delineation that I wanted to cite. If there is a supporting performance that is overwhelmingly memorable and powerful, it oddly disrupts this, what I imagine to be a proper two-hander. Now, you can make the case that some of the classics do have those things. I'm more willing to overlook them if I feel like the central performances are so great. Most movies are actually built around two people, but when I hear two-hander, I don't think romance or rom-com. I think a movie about friends or family members or enemies, people thrown together, like you said, the live wire, the anxious straight guy, and then the kind of crazy charismatic person on the side. So to me, that's like my definition of it. Reasonable people can disagree. You could say Bringing Up Baby is a two-hander if you want to, but I see that as a different subgenre of movie.
It's interesting because so when you sort of posited that we might talk about these things before I saw your like no romance rule, the first thing that comes to me is like the Before trilogy is the clear as day two-hander. But that's a movie in which there are barely any other characters. And then A Real Pain, on the other hand, you and I both really enjoyed the supporting cast around our two leads.
We didn't even mention Jennifer Grey, who's also wonderful in A Real Pain.
Great. Yeah. Okay, great. I'm happy to talk about these. I'm ready.
I don't think we need to do the like massive, like 5, then 5, then 5. Why don't you just give me your 5 and I'll give my 5? Was there anything on my list that you would have wanted?
Yes, 2 of them, but I just decided we shouldn't do overlap. That's just something I decided. It's not a rule. I just did it. Okay. So number 5 for me, Swiss Army Man. I really love that film. I've rewatched it a bunch, and I think that is as clear as day a two-hander, right?
Did I know this when we were talking about Everything Everywhere All at Once for 6 months? Maybe I did.
I don't know.
That's great.
Yeah.
I like Swiss Army Man too.
I really love that movie. It's funny. They're not on my list, but when I was thinking about A Real Pain and what worked and what didn't, I was thinking a lot about Everything is Illuminated, and I went back and like rewatched it, a little bit of it, to remind myself whether or not that would count as a two-hander. It might. And Roger Dodger, which is Jesse Eisenberg's first feature film, which is also a classique two-hander. It's sort of like you
love that movie.
Yeah, me too. And it's sort of like you mash those two together and you get A Real Pain. Number 4, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Gotta be.
I mean, number 3, I'm putting like a franchise in here. I'm cheating. It's classic Mallory Rubin Smuggle. The Road to series of movies that Bob Hope and Bing Crosby made in the 30s and 40s.
What would you say is the best of that series?
The Road to Morocco is the best one. But like, if you are looking for a film that you can watch in 2024 without feeling anything is problematic, you should not look at these films at all. But if you were looking at like some of the best comedic chemistry you've ever seen in your life, Bob Hope and Bing Crosby I prefer it to like Laurel and Hardy or Abbott and Costello or, you know, Martin and Lewis. There's something so chatty and quick-witted about Hope and Crosby in these movies that I absolutely love. Banshees of Inisherin, would you count this as a two-hander?
I would. I think that there's a little bit more time spent with Colin Farrell's character. Now, you've also got two incredible supporting performances in that movie.
With Barry and Carrie.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, do they trump?
And Jenny, the donkey.
And Jenny, of course. Well, R.I.P.
Yeah.
The prevailing meme from that film is, well, there goes that dream from Barry.
Oh, Barry.
And that scene between him and Carrie Condon on the river, which is just an absolute hammer shot. Just a great moment.
Yeah.
But I'll allow it. And
and
you're trying to restore your appreciation for McDonough here after blaspheming 3 Billboards. So
I think Banshees of Inisherin is the movie I've thought about the most in the last several years. I think about that movie all the time. Because
do you have a friend like that?
Yeah. Yes. In like someone who has like cut you out of their lives.
Are you you're the Farrell?
I'm the Farrell. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
And that's part where he's like, or were you never nice? That part, killer.
Powerful. Some of the real pain in that dynamic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That drift apart. Things end. And they matter because they end. And then number one, I stole this from your honorable mentions, but it is genuinely my number one, which is With Nail and I. And With Nail and I, in terms of this antic character, played by Richard E. Grant, and then your more stolid character, played by Paul McGann, like that dynamic. This is the best version of that for me. Our sort of stoic character, our and I character, is not nearly as neurotic as what Jesse Eisenberg is giving, but he is uptight and is in need of exposure to someone as chaotic and dangerous and frustrating as the With Nail character is. So I think it's a really good movie to talk in conjunction with The Real Pain. It's also, I think, a perfect movie. I love this movie. I think it's wonderful.
I love it too. It's been a long time since I've seen With Nail and I. Maybe I should go out and get that Arrow release.
Yes.
Of the Blu-ray.
Yes.
That's what I need to go do, is go pick that up at my local Blu-ray distribution center, wherever that may be.
I think you deserve it.
I'll do 5 quickly. I did have With Nail and I on my honorable mentions. I don't even know. This is not the definitive list of the greatest two-handers. These are personal lists. These are movies that we like.
Yeah.
Number 5 for me is The Nice Guys, which I watched on a plane 4 months ago, and I was like, this is probably the best movie I ever made. Best movie I've ever seen on a plane in my life. So fucking fun. Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe.
Why don't we have 20 of those movies?
I don't know. Well, we don't have 20 Shane Blacks. That's the thing. We don't have 20 Shane Blacks at that period of his career.
Fair.
Where Hollywood is still intact enough that you could get a movie like that off the ground. And it might be one of the last movies of that kind.
And it didn't do well.
It didn't do well, but it is beloved now, I think. I think it's beloved. It's definitely one of my favorite easy watches.
To go back to your sort of Christmas question, the Kiss Kiss Bang Bang feels like the version that played for people better than this did. But I love this movie. Nice Guys.
I mean, all of his movies are these kinds of two-handers, these kind of like mismatched duos going together.
Iron Man 3?
Speaking of Guy Pearce, right? He's kind of in the negative energy opposite Iron Man, is he not?
I think it's the kid, Harley.
Oh yeah. What is Guy Pearce's character's name in that movie?
Killian.
Killian what? Do you remember?
I think it's Aldrich Killian.
Oh my god.
You can't screw me over on 2 trivia questions.
My number 4 is Thelma and Louise. This kind of goes without saying. Speaking of Ridley Scott this week, a Gladiator 2 week. Another movie that has like relevant but maybe not overwhelming supporting performances in Brad Pitt and Harvey Keitel, but a movie that like absolutely centers Louise and Thelma, Susan Sarandon and Gina Davis, and I think shows like an interesting version of friendship, which is like loyalty but tentativeness and this desire to like stick together no matter what, even if like it's never totally clear like how close those two even are in the movie, or
like, how formative this experience was and making them. I think you'll find some people who will argue this belongs in the romance category, but I'll support you Female friendships are important to see on screen.
Queer-coded Thelma and Louise.
Queer-coded Thelma and Louise.
I'm cool with that. I mean, that would be okay. They don't actually kiss, right?
They don't.
Number 3 is Sweet Smell of Success, which is the opposite of Thelma and Louise. It's about two people that fucking hate each other, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. The poster of this movie hangs over my desk in my office at home. If you want to get to know a little bit about me and how I see the world, you can watch this movie.
Yeah.
Starring Tony Curtis and Burt Lancaster.
That's illuminating.
As a press agent, publicist, man about town with low morals, working very hard to please the local gossip columnist / power broker.
Do you find that you have an affinity for journalism movies?
I guess I have a little bit more access to that world, and so I'm more open-minded to them. This I don't really view as a journalism movie. It's actually more honestly represents like the world that I operate in, which is like the world of entertainment and
content creation.
Yes, content creation. Thank you for supporting me.
You're welcome.
Because there's no journalism really happening in that movie. It's a bunch of people lying to the public about what's real and what's not real, which is a little bit how things work, at least in the world of entertainment. There's a lot of messaging involved, wouldn't you agree?
There's a lot of that in the world of quote unquote journalism as well. And I love journalists and I support the media.
That's one of us. My number 2 is Paper Moon. Yeah, again, just issued in 4K by the Criterion Collection. Thank you for your work. The late great Peter Bogdanovich's 4th film, I want to say, starring Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal as a father and a daughter. A con man takes a little kid on the road, and they do great work together. Also, great supporting performances in that movie. Madeline Kahn in particular jumps out to mind. But
I like how you really carefully sort of picked different flavors of what a twosome could be.
I was thinking about relationships and what different kinds of relationships you might see in these circumstances. Sometimes you have family, sometimes you have friends, sometimes you have enemies, sometimes you have just a guy you work with. And my number 1 is The Lighthouse. And sometimes you just work with a guy who's just absolutely infuriating.
That's a movie that also just like it was extremely agitating to watch. Just extremely agitating.
By agitating, do you mean enlightening and humorous?
I walked out. I mean, that film is great, and I think about it all the time. But I walked out of it like genuinely nauseous. I think it was just all the like various fluids that were consumed in that movie.
It's deeply disgusting.
Absolute banger performance. The one that's missing from my list that I really wanted to put on there, but I just wasn't sure I could justify calling it a two-hander versus an ensemble film is Master and Commander.
Oh.
Another
with Bettany
film
and Crow?
Yeah. Bettany and Crow.
It's a big cast, though.
It's a huge cast. But like
usually you want these films to have fairly modest casts.
I hear what you're saying.
I like that pick, though. I had some other honorable mentions. Collateral.
Yeah. Yes.
Cruise and Fox. Misery?
I feel like that's a two-hander. When Cruise does something. Do you know what I mean?
God, I hope he starts doing something again. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I am building a shrine to Mission Impossible 8 as we speak.
No, you're. I know you love when Cruise does anything. Capital D, capital A. But isn't it better when he does something?
I don't like it when he does Lions for Lambs. So not anything.
What about Night and Day though?
Kind of in on Night and Day.
Yeah.
My guy Mangold. Yeah. He tried something.
Yeah.
He tried to do a zippy two-hander. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm a little concerned about Inarritu and Cruise, that being his foray into post-IP Cruise era. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever not enjoyed Cruise trying something.
What? Okay, do it quickly for me, even though I'm probably wasting an entire episode. Cruise trying something power rankings. Is it Magnolia, Eyes Wide Shut, or Collateral?
It's number 1 Magnolia. Without a doubt.
I'm with you.
Number 2 Collateral.
I agree. Yo Homie, is that my briefcase? One of the hardest I've ever laughed in a movie theater.
Are we putting Tropic Thunder on this list?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's good at number 3 or 4.
Yeah. Okay. What's number 4?
Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut.
I mean, Dr. Tom, that's just a super... Dr. Bill. That's just a super weird character. That if it didn't look like Tom Cruise, if it was like John C. Reilly, that would make more sense.
Yeah.
What else is in the Cruise trying stuff power rankings?
don't know what I would put at number 5. Oh, I wouldn't. But Rock of Ages counts. But I wouldn't.
Oh, it does count. I wouldn't put it on any list.
Award it anything, but it counts.
I mean, Interview with the Vampire.
Sure. Wigs,
He really tried
cravats,
some shit in that one.
Accents.
He went for it.
I love it.
Didn't appreciate The Last Samurai, but he tried something.
Okay. So we're negating my every time Tom Cruise tries something, it's great point. But what would we say? Wouldn't we prefer he try something than not try something?
Yes. Vanilla Sky is him trying something. Remember when he's the disfigurement and the mask and all that? I mean, that's a weird ass movie too. He is the GOAT. People want to act like he's just a guy who jumps off buildings, and they don't understand. They need to go back into the past and remember when he played the guy in Vanilla Sky.
He needs to continue to try things so that people remember what he's capable of.
Inarritu, though?
We'll see.
Joanna, thank you so much. Where can we hear you?
House of R.
Yep.
Where you can hear me most, like, many hours in the week.
What are you hitting on House of R?
Doom Prophecy. And Mallory will be taking another bite at the apple and talking about Gladiator 2 with me as well. So hopefully she doesn't burn all of her takes with you and Chris. But even if she does,
we'll burn them like we burn ships in ancient Rome.
Excellent. You can hear me on the Prestige TV feed. Rob and I are covering Say Nothing right now, which is really, really good. And I think
I just talked with Andy Greenwald on The Watch, and I was like, this is the best show I've seen in like 5 years.
I know.
It's amazing. Anybody who's listening to the show, even though I have an anti-TV bias, Say Nothing on Hulu is exceptional. And
it got me to read a nonfiction book, which is nigh impossible. So congratulations.
Patrick Radden Keefe, one of the best out right now.
Incredible book. And I think we're going to be covering like maybe Agency next, something like that. I don't know. It's a weird little time for Prestige TV. And you can be on Trial by Content where we're watching a million different Denzel movies. And I just watched all of the Equalizers. So that was...
What was your favorite?
I actually really liked 2 a lot.
Oh, weird. That's my least favorite.
Is
Interesting.
It?
Yeah.
What's your
3
favorite?
is my favorite,
3 is your favorite? Okay.
Yeah. Going to Italy. I'd just love to be in Italy.
When's the last time you watched Man on Fire?
A while ago. It's not really my bag. That's in the CR Bill zone. I love Denzel. I love Tony Scott. I never really got that one, to be honest with you.
I don't. It's so ringer core, and I don't enjoy it. So
it happens.
I'm going to say if you're going to pick something, it should be Equalizer over Man on Fire.
Oh, that's a bold
Denzel in that mode. You know what I mean?
I met one of the producers of the Equalizer films at Telluride this year, and he had a really good head on his shoulders about those films. He really understood like what they are at their essence, and I was like, you guys should just make like 3 or more of these. That'll be great.
I had a great time with them, and then someone like Melissa Leo's there. You're like, okay, Melissa Leo, get your Equalizer money. I support you.
The history of Hollywood is dotted with successful and gifted actors taking on IP stories to pay the rent. There's nothing wrong with it. I got no problem. It's the same reason I got no beef with Marvel movies if they're any good. This is normal. This is what movies are all about. Joanna, you're the greatest. Thank you so much.
You're the greatest, Sean. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks to Jack Sanders, and thanks to our producer, Bobby Wagner, for his work on this episode. Later this week on the show, I teased it, it's Gladiator 2 time. Mallory Rubin, Chris Ryan, me, talking Gladiator 2. We'll see you then.